Nothing says production value like playing the wrong intro twice in the same month. Hello, Internet. We're not Wednesday. We're that show on Tuesday.
That's right.
Yeah. So we are talking about juggling multiple projects. But before we do that, let's introduce ourselves. I am your host and producer, Tim TK. I'm joined by one Mr. Quentin Bedwell.
Yes, hello everyone. Good to be here.
Yes.
Good to be here.
And we were just talking about some hype for the new Lorraine show. What I'm really excited for too is the Helm Hammerhand animated show that's coming out.
Hey, I didn't even know of this one.
Yeah, so in addition to the Amazon show, which is going to be dealing with the Rangers and the I talked about earlier, the Second Age and the forming of the Last Alliance, but they're also doing an animated show that deals with Helm Hammerhand, the guy that the namesake of Helm's Deep, a guy who essentially fought off.
Yeah. I remember him. Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, yes. So they're making an anime show about him, and so that'll be exciting. You're probably get to see a dude bare knuckle fight some orcs.
Awesome.
All right, but we are going, like I said, we're talking about juggling multiple projects today. So probably some context here. And I think Quentin and I are probably some of the most well equipped here to talk about this. Because Jose, his day job is making comics essentially, and Mackenzie, while she does manage a dinosaur company and probably would also have some very good input. We have somewhat related, but still not quite fully integrated day jobs. Quentin has a family to wrangle, and
yes,
yeah, and I do sort of multiple freelance gigs in addition to making comics. So we'll be not just talking about juggling multiple projects and like getting multiple publications in, because I know Quentin and I both worked on multiple books at the same time. But also how that ties in with the projects you have that might not exactly be comic related, as time management is very important in a lot of aspects of life.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I need to be better at it. Holy bully. Yeah. Between work and family and projects and stuff that I just want to do. Holy moly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of juggling.
Oh yeah. And I think that's a common refrain that I hear from a lot of people who work in some sort of creative spaces. We understand the importance of time management, but the practice itself eludes us at times.
Yes. Yeah, especially when you get on stuff and, you don't realize it, but the clock hands are just turning behind you, and you don't even realize it. And before long, you're getting into the space of something else that you're supposed to be doing.
Oh,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. You get into some other work that you had planned, or the worst thing is being creative people or being in the entertainment space. Of course, we take in our own entertainment. So we mentioned this before about Quentin becoming a gaming abstinent when the Souls games eat into your time. But I mean, it doesn't even gaming. Sometimes like you're reading a comic for reference or you're reading a book for reference, and you get so engrossed that you end up realizing, like, oh my god, far less time to actually work on this than I'd hoped.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
I can imagine also that can be quite a thing when you have kids at home as well, because you probably spend a bit of time watching what they want to watch, or if they or getting that dad time in.
Yeah, and like, don't have anything that you don't mind being destroyed. Like comics and stuff, and I try also to use my stuff to try to get them involved in it too,
Mm.
because the next generation coming up, you know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so there's that. Haven't quite gotten them into comics yet, but they did play with He-Man today.
There you go.
Yeah, my classic He-Man. They started playing with them, and they actually loved it. I was so stoked because I've been waking them up in the mornings now that summer's here. I've
Hmm.
been waking them up with the TV blaring with the new animated series on there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so them waking up to it, they're finally like, "Hey, let's watch He-Man."
nice.
They don't know that I've,
It's programming.
and
It's
yeah,
the,
yeah,
the
been
Pavlovian
programming them.
He-Man.
Yep, been brainwashing them.
Perfect. I feel like definitely He-Man, GI Joe, and um, the X-Men were all very much like the gateway properties, where they're such good
Yep,
animated shows that as a kid, you eventually that was the thing. Like Dad was like, "Well, if you want to know more about it,
yep.
yeah, definitely." So uh, let's just kind of hop straight into it. I've been
I'll
seeing that.
share my screen as well.
Excellent,
Give the people an exclusive
a juicy
look.
exclusive.
Yeah, I'm working on the cover for a certain book. You'll see it as soon as I share it because I've already got the title on it.
Mm.
So this will be something good for anybody who's doing covers out there. I go ahead and I work
Ooh,
it out with the title already on there. Even if I don't
mm.
have the official title, I will make one.
Right. Just get your
Uh,
spacing right.
yeah, just to be able to get everything where it's supposed to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So no spoilers, but you're getting to see a cover that you will not get to see anywhere else
Oh yeah,
until it drops. So
definitely. And
yep.
that I love the whole design. Maybe a little bit of Skeletor influence on there. Speaking of He-Man.
Yes. Yes, you boob.
Yes, very good.
Oh boy. Classic Skeletor. When I first got into He-Man, and this is way off subject, but when I first
Sure.
got into He-Man, I could not wait to see the animated series. But when I did, I was so disappointed in Skeletor because he sounded like a mob boss.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, it grew on me, and it actually became more comedic to me, and now I wouldn't trade it. But I always thought he was going to be so much more ominous and cool. But Saturday morning cartoons of the time did not allow a lot of
right.
you know real cool stuff, scary stuff.
Definitely. And I think uh, the quality of voice acting really seemed to scale. Now we're like in a golden age of voice acting, where like some of the best talent are voice actors right now. I feel like, but
Yeah,
I for me, like there's definitely a clear difference between uh some of the stuff that like started getting produced in the late 80s, then compare that to mid to late 90s when you end up getting things like the Magneto from the X-Men TV series and Mark Hamill's Joker, really kind of elevating uh
yes, yeah,
acting. Yeah. All right. So I guess then we're talking about juggling multiple projects. So uh I will kind of open up the floor here just for introduction's sake. So uh dealing with either multiple books or books and then projects from the day job or from work around the house. Um, on any, uh, on a busy day, on a busy week, how many things are you usually handling in any given day?
that's a good one. Fathering and husbanding every day, but we have worked something out. Mondays is the day that my wife runs interference for me, Mondays and Tuesdays. And that is the days that after I get off of work, after I do some of my chores and kind of, push the kids around,
Yeah.
and stuff. then I can go and start doing all the art. And that's just how we work it out. So I mean, it's multiple all the time. I know this doing these covers, I have been super busy at
Mhm.
work. That's why I haven't been attending the streams as often, uh, because work has just gotten so ridiculous. And the thing is right now, for those who don't know, who are watching this and don't know, I work in the t-shirt screen printing business, and we do stuff nationwide. So if there's playoffs in one area around you, then that means we're doing the playoffs for people nationwide.
Mhm.
And if band, if it's the time of year for band to start ordering stuff, and they order strange stuff, they
Oh
just
yeah.
do. They're going to order the most interesting stuff. Like tomorrow, I am working on a piece with Thanos playing a flute,
Mhm.
and Voldemort is playing the little triangle, and Darth Vader is playing the trombone, and Scar is got a bassoon. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, and this time of year that stuff hits.
Mhm.
So we're not in playoff time right now, but we're in the time where bands start ordering a bunch of stuff for
Yep.
next year. And oh my goodness, the requests we get is just and by the way, they didn't want it like they want it like, painted,
Yeah.
you know, really super duper stuff.
Oh
So
yeah. This is about the time where we were getting ready for band camp. Yeah. You definitely band kids and band teachers. Definitely up there in terms of eccentric designs and mascots. Some of the things that we
yes.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, they get most of the time they get the most creative stuff, and I think it's just the musical nature.
Hmm.
That art side of their brain works a little bit more.
Yeah.
A lot of times coaches will be like, just usually it's if it's coaches, they're just like, yeah, we just want something signifying, we won the playoffs. We beat the other team.
Yep.
Then you have a lot of times you'll have parents though that order the shirts, and they'll be really, hey, I saw this on Pinterest and I thought this would be really nice, and a little bit more interesting, but always, always, always band is going to be, you know,
Oh
I
yeah.
just did all that on the wrong layer.
Oh,
But
perfect.
anyway,
Yeah.
going back to trying to split it all, there's just some things that I just have to put off, and some things I just can't do,
Mhm.
like gaming. I would love to game, but I just don't have the time in a day to do it.
Mhm. Definitely.
Uh,
I'm about there as well. Prioritization is definitely like kind of that kind of key thing where uh and it's kind of a sad truth that the older you get, the more you have to stop doing. Not because you don't want to, just because you can't fit it in as much.
You have to choose.
Yeah.
You have to choose what you're gonna do.
Hmm.
I have, at different times, like tonight, I played just a little bit of Call of Duty with my
No.
son because he has started playing Call of Duty and he likes it, and he's only 7, and so it's all on a really low level, but it's
Mhm.
older Call of Duty games,
Yeah.
Call of Duty Ghosts. But anyway, I have to take time to introduce him to stuff. But I don't really consider that playing, like for me, because, if I was playing, I'd have it on the hardest settings, and,
Oh yeah.
you, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Definitely.
just totally different level. Uh, uh, but yeah, I mean, you just have to pick and choose what you're going to do. I have a game, that I still want to work on, and I've had so many great ideas lately to do an expansion for it and stuff, and I just
Hmm.
haven't done it. Um, Talking about a board game, not a video game.
No.
Um, but anyway, there's that, and I will get to it eventually. After I get some of this work behind me, I'll get back into it. But it is not for me not wanting to or being burnt out on it or any of that
Hmm.
stuff. It's just literally I have so much work to do. At some point, I'm just going to have to say, okay, I'm doing this, and I'm going to have to put everything else,
Yeah.
down. And you make time for what you love.
Hmm.
When somebody says, "Well, I don't really have time for this or that," but see, my problem is I love so many things. you
Yeah.
know, I love so many things that I have to pick and choose what I'm going to do this given time period. This
Hmm.
time frame. So
Yeah, definitely. And like, I still am at the point where I can game pretty regularly on the week on the weekly, thankfully. But it's definitely a point where like it's just limited to Destiny or right now trying to get through Jedi Fallen Order, but I can't make the same like several hours dedicated to just grinding in Elden Ring or a huge Total War
well,
campaign.
that's another thing
Yeah.
too. See, is I love games that you grind on,
Oh
and I
yeah.
just don't have time. There's so many games that I love that it really just
Yeah.
takes you. You can't just kind of halfway sit down, one and done, boom, gone. Back to work.
Hmm.
Um, that's another issue too. Is a lot of the games I seem to go for are ones that require
Yeah.
you putting time and effort in.
Yes. All the Sims and stuff that essentially feel like second jobs.
Yes,
Yeah,
but it's so fun.
it is.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of the same boat where uh I almost find also uh almost scheduling out that time specifically also does help where I know that um you know outside of that I'm going to be working on writing or work outside of that because much like you my work's also been a little hectic. That's why I missed the 2 weeks before last was uh before my current position. I was actually freelancing for that company, and they had we're doing a campaign blitz, so we had to get a bunch of articles out and ready before summer. So I was just grinding out articles nonstop.
Mm.
But at the end of that, I knew that like, okay, once I get this last thing done, I have a Warhammer 40,000 tournament, and that's my entire Saturday. I am not scheduling anything else. That is my reward for finishing all this work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too. That's a good thing to do right there. What you just said is, you can make some of those things as rewards, and you can
Mhm.
make yourself take off certain times to do that.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
definitely. So that's also kind of funny thing where you work a lot, and then people know that about you, and then when uh you tell them like, no, I'm protecting the stage just to do absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, but I had a college professor. I think it was like my very first class, and he was he gave me he gave us all some really good advice. He said, you always say, like, I am absolutely a believer in slacking off and having like absolute do nothing brain dead time. But
Yeah.
I do that in a way that's guilt free. Like, if I can get everything done early, so when someone walks in while I'm just doing, playing, he was a huge Fallout guy. So he's talking when I'm playing Fallout 4 and someone, so this is, yeah, we had our class like the week after Fallout 4 was announced for that. But he would say, the goal is just to be uh, get everything knocked out. So when someone walks in and you're just, a brain dead slop on the couch, and that's like, there's just something better to do, you can honestly say, no, absolutely not. um, but yeah, just getting all that done beforehand. So when you do have that brain dead, just chill time, it's guilt free.
Yeah. Well, my thing is a lot of times people catch me when I'm doing not doing anything, and they think I haven't been doing anything,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
that's not the case.
yeah,
Uh, so there's that.
absolutely. That's yeah. Like I said, that's one time I'm like, no, I don't have anything better to do. I already did it.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, So, getting kind of specifically to working in comics and juggling multiple books, I have had a couple of projects where I have been, editing a book and writing a book, or writing two books. I did that at the end of Wolf Hunter, because they're also getting the first script of Soul Senate ready to be sent off. And of course, also I do the website, so I'm constantly doing both, managing or writing a book. Sometimes managing if I'm the editor, and managing the web content. So balancing that is its whole other act. So as an artist, man, I know you have experience with this, but working on multiple books, either doing covers for one and interiors for another, or interiors for both, or
Which is what's going on right now.
yeah, or
Yeah.
getting sent a Christmas special in the middle of working on other books already.
Yes, or just get done with something. Yay! Hey, could you do this for me? Sure.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the experience like for you, and kind of what are some of your ways of either dealing with that, or suffering, or thriving in a situation if you manage to do one or the other?
Well, I don't, part of me, like sometimes I don't mind it at all because it kind of gives me a chance to not get overwhelmed with something, one
Yep.
thing. At the on the other side of it, sometimes it takes me a little while to shift gears.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's like, man, I'm doing fantasy right now. I'm just not in the sci-fi
Sure.
mode. So sometimes it takes a little, sitting down for just a minute, and sometimes I even have to look at a comic or something, to
Hmm.
kind of. I would say watch a movie, but I haven't done that in so long. I mean, I've
Yeah.
watched movies, but I haven't watched a movie just so I could get back into something. But sometimes I do. I have to do stuff that will make me kind of get into it. You know. Uh,
Definitely.
and thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. You said that looks gorgeous. Yeah, You are getting a first-hand look at it. As a matter of fact, nobody will be seeing this until it goes up on the Kickstarter.
A little bit
I
of a
don't know if this will be the main cover. I don't even know. Look at that. I don't even know
there you go.
if it's going to be the main cover or if it's going to be an alternate cover.
A little bit of a juicy
So
squeeze. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. I actually had to do a couple of these as thumbnails to show. I can actually do that right now. Just show what whenever we're going to do them, I just kind of do like a render, a real
Yeah.
rough render, and then show that to whoever the comic belongs to and go from there. So
Right.
that's kind of what you're going to be looking at the end of it. I do mine out a little bit more than some, just saying. So
Yeah.
some people kind of do theirs a little bit with less detail, but
I was gonna say, yeah, that for a render, like,
I get
uh,
carried away.
and for yeah, Ryan said, wow, and definitely, for a render, like, you'd almost just say put some watercolor on that, and that's a done cover. Just the
Yeah,
way that line work works. Yeah.
well, this I've said it in the past. This is my therapy,
Hmm.
and sometimes, man, especially on a long day, like tomorrow's going to be a long day because I'll do that piece and I'll do several other pieces besides that, and I'm at my wits end.
Oh
Because
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that I have to do on a daily basis that I don't particularly talking about getting into stuff.
Hmm.
I'm just not interested in, but I have to make myself get interested in it, to do it
Right.
and to perform, and I have to work for the customer, uh, and give them the best, give them my best. And
Right.
that's, and that sometimes it's really tough, but Then I get here and I get so focused in on details and I get
Yeah.
carried away and lose myself, and the clock is just going behind me. Uh,
I can imagine you can only do so many lines holding footballs a quarter.
yes. Yep. What about writing though? That's a lot of thought there. I mean, that goes into writing and a lot of creativity in the thought world.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a lot of times, what I do is I doodle, and sometimes that helps.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you do
Yeah.
to get in that mode?
Yeah. So writing when you're working on like multiple books, like and working on Wolf Hunter, which is a World War II spy thriller, and Soul Senate, which is a mythological space epic. Very very different genres. But Brandon Sanderson has this term that he coined that I definitely think has value, and that is taking a brain break.
Hmm.
Which is in writing. I also kind of agree with Neil Gaiman's thought that there's no such thing as writer's block. Like if a block is something that happens to your pipes, not your plumber. This is the metaphor there. Um,
Hmm.
uh, there are words there. You just need to figure out which words need to come out, and that'll get everything going. Working on Soul Senate, if that wasn't going to me particularly well, then I'd hop over to Wolf Hunter, and I'd find like, oh, I'm actually writing a lot of, the the villain has a particular way of talking that becomes more present in the later issues, so that won't spoil that particular background of them because that will actually spoil a decent chunk of the comic. But writing that particular voice style as opposed to writing in the pseudo Latin, very official tone that a lot of people talk with in Soul Senate. So bouncing between the two actually allows me to be more efficient with my time because one will work better where the other one won't. And then when one dries up, if I go to the other one, that's been percolating in my subconscious. So that one is ready to go. And you work in graphic design for t-shirts and all that. I work in writing marketing, so sometimes even that will help where writing about like HVAC installation isn't the most thrilling thing, but and it is hard to get excited for that. But sometimes after being stuck in that for so long, coming back to writing about the more fantastical or the more exciting stuff, it is therapeutic, and it does want to come out more because it's been repressed by thousands of words about why you need this particular AC unit or this particular like air filter for your car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Work can be pretty dry at times, especially if you've got your heart set on something else. Absolutely. But at the same time, whenever things come up, and it's good to have like something that you can go to in your brain to keep you sane.
Yeah.
We could say,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
And there is almost some benefit to because there definitely is skill carryover. Like the more projects you do at once, I mean, obviously if you extend yourself, if you bring yourself out, you're going to have diminishing returns. But if you're at a point where you're at a balanced strain, where you are challenging yourself in different ways, working on your high school mascots or your marketing material, there's still concepts of
Yeah.
design or engaging writing that carry over and vice versa. So, and then working across genres where, having an extensive work drawing fantasy or writing fantasy will cause you to think about science fiction or realism in a different way.
Well, I'm absolutely blessed that I have a job that, like I have that, it keeps my art, muscle working. Definitely. Yeah, it really helps a lot. And I've actually worked a lot of other jobs. I've worked offshore. I've I've done all kinds of different stuff. I used to do the other part of screen printing where I'd actually print the T-shirts and stuff. I've
work in the press.
Yeah, that was one of the things that got me my job. What they were looking. They had all this, how many years of college you needed to have and all that stuff. And I've been working in it since I was 15, off and on. So I already knew a lot of the stuff. Like I worked in little shops, so I was able to do all the stuff and know how to do it. That helped out a lot. So
definitely.
Yeah.
So
very fortunate.
Oh yeah. And that's definitely something that I found too, having gone from working in auto sales to a warehouse to finance, and now actually having a day job in writing of some aspect. It's the weird when you do find that job that does align with what you are, what you do, what you are. It makes a lot of everything. So I can't imagine trying to create. Well, this is probably going to sound very privileged. It probably is, but trying to create comics while also being like a warehouse worker. So I feel like if you, I think we do have some people here who do work in warehouses, and but so those people that do it, they definitely their ability to balance their creativity while also having what might be a soul sucking job if it's not what they're passionate about. Definitely kudos to them for doing that.
Exactly. I mean, you got to eat, you got to live, you got to pay for stuff, and it's I was just fortunate. I taught school for a while, and I was not really able to follow this as much as I do now. And and there for a while, I didn't think even with this job I was going to be able to, because we were working so many hours, but all the time. But I just decided if I'm going to get anywhere doing this, if this is what I want to do, I mean, you only live once. Then I'm just going to have to do it, and I'm going to have to stay up, to do it. Like I'm staying up right now. You're on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I am on the East pretty much. I'm in Texas, but it's still, Eastern or Central. I can't remember. But anyway, it's very late here. And we know this is when I get to my alone time to be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And luckily enough, at least, something like this allows you to, juggling multiple projects again. If we're doing, marketing for your comic, it's kind of, or for publisher, it's kind of great to be able to do that while also working on your comic.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't really do it because I just get too distracted while they're trying to write a comic while talking about an unrelated subject. Although we did have an episode, which people can click back on, where we did write out the beginnings of a very interesting mushroom-infused skateboarding comic.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, y'all should really look that up. That was good.
Yep.
Hey.
And we're
hello,
Mr. Aaron. One Mr. Aaron Humphreys.
Hey, sorry, running late. Always running late.
Yes.
Seems like everyone ditched you.
Yeah, we're making do. Where it's the classic duo here, but we're glad to have you with us. The other West Coast buddy here.
So, are you working on Trumps, Quentin?
Yes, cover.
Are we doing a Kickstarter for the second issue soon or something?
It won't be long. It won't be long now. That's what the cat said when he got his tail caught in the lawnmower, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It won't be long now.
It will not.
Nope.
Yeah, it's coming up, I think, within the next couple months or something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah. But we are talking about juggling multiple projects. So Aaron, if you have any of the jump straight in, juggling multiple books at once or juggling books on a day job.
Yeah,
yeah.
I finished. I was working the obsoletes and finished up Goblin, so that was going back and forth.
Yeah.
Do one page on one, the page in the other, back and forth. Now I'm just working on the obsoletes. So
Okay.
yeah.
So you do. So I kind of like what I was talking about, where like I need to take a brain break from bouncing between two different books, where I write a bit on Soul Ascendant, then write a bit on Wolf Hunter. You kind of did something similar, bouncing between doing the art for two different books.
Yeah. I was doing the art between. No, Goblins was my own, so it was easier.
Mm-hmm.
But then doing the obsoletes and then going back and forth, so keeping track of each one. And it's weird because I've noticed me working on multiple projects, I get more interested in one than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've always been a person that likes to start something to finish it before moving on to the next thing. So working on two different things at once sometimes could be taxing a little bit. I want to get one.
Sure.
I've done this. I've tried to do that with video games. So I'll try to play a few games at once, and I usually just get sucked into one and finish that before moving on. It never works out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we talked about this before, but you suffer from the opposite of shiny new syndrome, where whatever is new can go on the back burner. So you gotta finish this right now. So did you find that when you're bouncing between two different books that you were, I couldn't have mentioned this, but you need some time to maybe wind up or find the mood for that other style? Or was it like what I saying, we're working on one kind of allows the other one to percolate in your subconscious. So when you come back to it, it almost just kind of comes right out.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny. There was not really a switch in style. I guess I kind of have my own style, and even when I've attempted to switch it somewhat, my style still comes out. So it just as I'm drawing it, I just like, oh yeah, okay, I'm back to.
Yep.
It's like trying to change your handwriting. Eventually, you just go back. Your body just goes back to the same thing.
Rob Liefeld and feet.
Yeah, it's funny. I never did. I could pretty much jump straight to the other. And this is Goblin's my own. I usually was percolating more in my head. Because trying to figure out how to tell it, is this right? Is this looking okay? Obsoletes, I was more just like, as long as I'm showing what's in the script, and that wasn't as much. I think it's because I'm not the writer, so I'm just trying to portray what's in the script. So I'm actually on my own book trying to think, oh, was this the best way to show it? Can that be more dramatic and blah 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 and stuff like that? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So. Oh, I like the skull.
All right. Yeah,
horror book.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, I definitely love the kind of Skeletor influence on it. And, almost looks like some sort of pane or panel behind it. It's almost stained glassish behind it. Almost. I'm not sure what Quentin's going for there, but yeah.
You'll see.
We'll see in time.
It's the cover exclusive edition of that Tuesday night show.
Yes, we got our juicy exclusive. All right. So
I'm just looking at it.
Yeah.
I didn't know Quentin could draw.
Some people are still wondering if I can.
Yeah.
If anyone doubts that, we just show them the facades or interiors we made you do for the Christmas special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Actually, I have these. There we go. So that floating around.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
When he's blowing stuff up.
Yep.
And we got a.
Oh, I had to do a lot of that in this book too. Oh my goodness.
Photorealistic representation of St. Martin's in the Fields.
Oh, that's right. You're drawing Trump's 4, right? Yeah. Or is it 3?
3.
3. Okay.
Yeah, I've been done with it for quite a while now. And it was actually I got done with it just around the time I had to do I had to blow up London.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was.
Well, who doesn't want to blow up London?
Yeah.
All right.
In the Christmas special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can actually use this as kind of a segue. So balance between going from doing one style to another. We kind of briefly touched on this, but you might need your own time to warm up, or I think Quentin mentioned you might need to read a comic in that style. But going from genre to genre, especially if it's like an extreme genre change, going from I went from World War II to sci-fi epic. It sounds like you went from sci-fi epic to World War II. Doing those transitions, what are some of your ways of getting settled in that the tone or the style that's appropriate for that setting or that genre, as opposed to wanting to bring laser guns or flaming spears into one or the other? Or in my case, I guess we'd be bringing Messerschmitts into
like, what do I read to get in the mood or whatever?
When you phrase it like that, but yes.
I don't know, Tim. What do you want me to read to get in the mood? Tim's like, read this. Yeah. Just make sure you turn the lights low.
Just got Emperor Dune, yeah.
I've been one of those people that just been able to kind of jump straight in and go to my art. I don't know, I never needed warm-up sessions to do my art. Like a lot of people do preliminary sketches or warm-ups. I just kind of jump straight in and do it. So artists have like, I didn't think everybody needed a warm-up. I thought I was more, but I find that I'm more uncommon that I do that. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people need to warm up and get loose. I'm just never.
It depends with me on the day I've had.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I know you had mentioned earlier about you might end up doodling or doing something like that. Can you go into a little bit more on that?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I have to do some doodling. When I was coming from this, going to the Christmas special, World War 1940s. I always I really love history, and I know a lot about what it was that you were throwing down, and but at the same time, I've never really done any art that was centered on the 1940s or any of that World War II stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of an issue. So I didn't really doodle for that one. I just kind of, I don't know. I read your script over and over and over, and then just looked at some reference stuff. Because even though I'm familiar with a lot of it, of course, drawing it, you have to be aware of what you're drawing intimately. Especially when it comes to researching vehicles and planes and I know and some of this stuff was a little hard to find, like the BBC bands, because that's not just something you just look up and you're going to find very easily.
And they, especially since images of those were not as common for the very reason that we kind of cover in that special is the fact that if you were to fabricate one, or the fact that they did have some that got stolen by the Germans, that they could be very easy to infiltrate with one of those.
Well, not only that, but some of the buildings are no longer there. I mean, they were
demolished,
gone a long time ago. And for instance, St. Martin's in the Field, they have a back stained glass there at the end. I had to really research hard to get the stained glass because all that was destroyed during World War II.
Yeah.
And now it's like this modern thing, but back then it was something else. And of course, there's probably nobody that was reading the comic like, oh, that's the wrong stained glass in the window. But I wanted to be, for me, I had to be authentic.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I needed to find the right, stained glass. So that I spent some time doing that,
that's kind of the crappy thing that I realized when we went to the BBC, and the fact that when I looked up, like, at this point the BBC had been hit by an aerial mine and they were in the process of throwing camouflage nets over it, but they actually hadn't gotten repairs done. But then the year after that, it was repaired and it was a completely different building, essentially. So there's like 6 months here of like someone may have taken a photo reference.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that during that time period. Whenever I was doing the people, Yeah, I've seen movies of World War II people.
Mhm.
I've seen, I know basically what they were wearing, but
You mean
if
clothes?
yeah, if you're gonna be drawing it, and
Mhm.
you're gonna have to know where all those lines go, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you want to be authentic, so you research little stuff like that nobody else would really consider.
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't have to. You can wing it.
Right.
Plenty of people do. There's
I,
nothing
th-
wrong with that either.
I think someone had. I can't remember who it was, but uh, like the reference, like the RAF uniform that Willard did it in is like no, it's spot on for the details, but someone mentioned that like the cut or the fit was a little inaccurate for the time because it's tied around the torso, or as opposed to, like at the time men's fashion is very loose. And my comment back to that was, oh, have you seen the comic where the hero looks good in a loose fitting jacket?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's like if you have a
And
guy who looks like Action Man, he needs to look like Action Man.
Yeah.
yeah, and see, that was another thing too. That very thing that you just mentioned. I had to look through all kinds of stuff, and a lot of what I was able to find was from reunions and stuff that people had, and they still had their uniforms on, and that was because there were so many conflicting photos of what that looked like,
Yeah.
especially the symbol on the chest. That was a thing, you know.
Yes. The depending on the wing you're at, and if you were at achieved ace status or not, that may have changed, or it may have been slightly different. As I know, if you were one of the aces in exile, even if you were given ace status, you had a completely different chess piece, even though you're technically an ace in the RAF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, there's probably nobody that's going to look at that comment and be like, well, that's not the right symbol on the chest. He would have been, yada, yada,
Mhm.
yada.
It depends on
But
who is. I used to watch historical shows with a history major, and she would
Mhm.
comment all the time how inaccurate things were.
Right.
yeah,
So it just depends.
Mhm.
I don't really notice it as long as it generally looks like it,
Mhm.
you know, close enough.
Yeah. My favorite
Um,
thing is. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was saying that's
No.
usually how I see. And they even in World War II, they have taken liberties when they do like um fictional stories.
Mhm.
Like they did like Overlord and stuff
Yes.
was accurate, but then they had to stretch it because you're dealing with monsters and
Yes.
zombies, and so
Yeah.
that I don't mind. I
Yeah.
mean, as long as if you're stretching it for the confines or the
Mhm.
context of the story, that's okay. Especially if what you're telling is completely fictional.
Yeah. That's what I.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the opening of Wolf Hunter issue number 1, we use a fictional date of battle. Is
Hmm.
I believe it's July 13th is what we say in the comic. But on July, I chose that one because on July 12th and July 14th, there are dogfights over that same stretch in the channel.
Yeah.
And so, since this is a secret history where this guy's story is supposed to be redacted, I wanted to say, like, well, if there's fights on both sides of the day, who's to say we can't say there's a fight there who's also there, and that might have been either moved or used that to fit in like character
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. So we use a fight that would have occurred on either day after, but just give it a new context so that we can slip in details that we need.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, look at the movie the comic book and the movie
Mm.
300. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, that's not historically accurate at all. But
We're missing about 10,000 Athenians, and
oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, even the story he did was inaccurate. I mean, the way I heard
Mhm.
it, the Spartans didn't go to stop the Persians; they were retreating, and
Mhm.
the 300 stopped to hold off the Persians to allow the Greek army to retreat.
Yeah,
That's the
essentially,
story I heard.
yeah. They weren't supposed to go to war, but the rest of Greece was. So, um, Keen Leonidas at that time. This is actually covered in the book The Bronze Lie. So if anyone's interested and wants to kind of read about the Spartan propaganda machine, it's really interesting. But Keen Leonidas was an old man who had never fought any major battles. So he's like, I got to do something before I die. So he grabbed his personal bodyguard and marched out to join the rest of the Greek army. They set up that position there, and then when they realized that they're being outflanked, it's that same situation where the 300s fought a fighting retreat along with a couple thousand Athenians and
Yeah.
people from the other city states. While while the rest of the League army went back to north of Athens to stop them from pushing any further.
Right. It was a yeah, and also I mean, but it didn't, and that's something that bothered me because Frank Miller wrote it to be like a tall tale. You know, something you would tell around the campfire.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I see what he's going for. He's taking the historical event and kind of writing this sort of tall tale around it, like something you would hear word of mouth. I'm like, okay, that's totally fine. So I think you can change history to sometimes get to the essence of something that inspires you. I mean, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they haven't even done science right half the time. I mean, when I saw the show Gravity, they were trying to make it as accurate as possible, but apparently the guy who's directing it said, "Yeah, it got really boring, so we decided to just change it up." And I'm like, okay, but again, the only and that usually never stuff like that can bother me. It bothered me especially in Gravity because you're dealing with NASA. I expect some level of realism,
right?
Because NASA's a real entity researching actual space. Star Wars, I don't care.
Right.
Stuff like that, I don't
care. That's what I liked about The Expanse was they said like we have like weird like alien superviruses. Them to make it interesting. We can take time to explain that the only time you get any sort of artificial gravity on a ship is through linear thrust, and it has to be designed in a very specific way. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard. I've not watched. I've watched some of The Expanse, but I've heard that it does a pretty good job of backing up the science, which is strange enough. If you actually just like history, if you are accurate with history and accurate with science, you can actually make, to me personally, more far interesting stories, because it's just when you stop to think about like, well, how would somebody fight in space? I mean, we've always talked about like, would you have dogfights? And like, no, it would literally be like people shooting laser beams over hundreds of miles to incinerate ships. I mean, you probably wouldn't even see your enemy. They would just be shooting at points. It would basically be like submarine warfare on a massive scale.
Well, that was one of the things that really tripped me out about that whole show was just the little stuff, you know, like just the little stuff that they paid so close of attention to, like for instance, you know, people being born on Mars, they obviously didn't deal well with Earth's gravity. People who were born out in the belt, who had always ever been in the belt, they couldn't possibly, you know, survive on a planet, you know, because of the gravity and
developed like bone mutations and stuff because they didn't have the same amount of compression on their joints as their parents did.
Right, little stuff like that, you know, that snag me in, you know, really quick.
Yeah,
but it makes it interesting because it stops and makes you think, well, what if this really was? I mean, there are little things. To me, that makes science fiction more interesting than just, well, they're in space and it's lasers and spaceships. I'm like, yeah, but so when you start paying attention to some of the effects that you are, you know, in a complete void of no air.
And for years, there's so many of those, you know, real simple things that have been shown to us, you know, we never questioned it, you know, but I mean, it made it different, you know, that they were actually focusing on that kind of stuff, you know.
Well, that's kind of like to Aaron's point, like a lot of science fiction shows and movies, you still get the classic image of like the ships pulling up and broadsiding each other.
Yeah.
But then you go to The Expanse and they're like, well, no, it's a gunship, so it's going to be built in like a cylinder, and it's not going to be armed. It's going to have a few torpedoes at the front, but it's going to have mostly just, if you don't have energy weapons, which they said like it may not be a thing. So like it has computer assisted machine guns essentially that are on gimbals. So you're going to spiral the ship so it's harder to like shoot at it, but that way it has full range of motion, so its guns can just track incoming missiles or the ships around it. So it's not broadsiding. You're just spiraling through a danger zone.
Right. And you also have to remember, because there's no air stuff in space, you can actually shoot. If you shoot ballistic weapons, you can shoot them like if you shoot a 32 caliber bullet, it's going to be traveling the same speed till it hits the other ship. There's no air resistance to slow it down. So there's lots of effects. I mean, it's interesting when you use and I think ballistics is it's always dangerous. Energy weapons, I think I can see it working better. The only thing I would think is ballistic weapons, considering the speed you would project the bullet, you would give them time to get away. Where a light weapon, especially a laser, would be almost instantaneous because of the speed of light. And so, but again, it's weird to think, because we're thinking, when you think of like, yeah, you wouldn't even see your enemy. You would just be blips on the radar. They'd be charting out the shot and then taking the shot, and you wouldn't even see him up close. Like if you were doing real space warfare. But it's not as exciting as Star Wars. I mean, all the dogfighting stuff is cool to look at. I mean, if you did it realistically in space, I mean, there was a show. It was based on a video game. It was what was that? It was StarCraft or something. But they did basically submarine warfare in space, and they did an okay job of it. The ships were very up close. But I'm like, oh, that's cool. Star Trek, I think, does a good job of doing that sort of space warfare from a distance.
When it comes to like the command structure and all that kind of stuff, I mean, Star Trek was very good at nailing that. And they did really good with the science, they had at the time. And then there's just some stuff, it's like video games, there's a lot of stuff that's not realistic in video games, but at some point you have to stop, trying to make things realistic and remember that you have a game to balance.
Right.
That there's people playing the game, and that's kind of the way it is with shows. At some point you have to leave some room for the story to take place.
That's honestly what I thought worked well about like Battlestar Galactica is like the science they gave. There's enough backstory to make the science as wishy-washy as it needed to be, because the backstory was like, of course it doesn't make sense. It's humanity before humanity in a faraway world after the end of humanity. But in terms of battle doctrine, the idea of having, your ships are essentially just large artillery platforms or command centers. And if you were to have fighters, they'd be serving interdiction roles trying to disable the ship before you were exposed yourself.
Yeah, they'd be working on disabling. One of the funny things as far as like dogfighting is, my favorite show is always Robotech as far as the way they did dogfighting. I think Star Wars and them did a pretty good job of like that dogfighting in space. But again, I mean, do your ships really need wings?
Right.
Unless you're going into the atmosphere, no. But
so we're kind of getting off topic here, but I will tie this back in. So working on a project, Quinn and I kind of very recent experience with this, but Aaron, I don't know if you have as well. Working on a project where you do have these hard set rules of physics and law, like laws of reality or battle doctrine that you need to apply to, and then doing it at the same time as something that is absolutely not that. Almost wonder. I find it's easier to have like one of both, like working on Wolf Hunter, which is like hard set World War II, and then Soul Ascendant, which is gods in space doing Roman god stuff. I still get the mythology right-ish, but I mean, there's no experts on what gods fighting in space looks like, so there's nothing I need to really adhere to on that. It's
funny. I when I did my godlings, the best way I envisioned my godlings fighting was Dragon Ball Z. The idea where they'd be blowing up a mountain with a single shot. That's as far as how fast some of my characters would move. That actually came from the movie Man of Steel, which I've seen this in Dragon Ball Z too. Where it was the Fiona, I think, woman, they were trying to shoot her, and she just she was almost looked like she was teleporting across the ground. She was moving so fast. Like, that's how I would see gods fighting. Now, Interstellar, that's a whole different concept. So what did you base that on? I mean, what was your reference for them fighting in that grand of a scale?
For me, it actually came a bit from I guess also kind of like I was able to take more oddly enough, Conan and I talked about earlier, but sometimes when you're balancing multiple projects, times for games, but I made time to play some games while I was doing both those things at the same time, where I'd play Destiny to warm up for writing Soul Ascendant, and then I'd play Hearts of Iron or Hell Let Loose for Wolf Hunter, but kind of that same idea where the Roman pantheon is a lot of like ancient pantheons where that they are, human enough that you can scale it down, but extreme enough that when their power gets unleashed, like it's devastating.
Yeah.
So being able to essentially think like, what would a human who has total control over the void of space look like, and like creating like ex nihilo out of that, where they're of the god that comes out of nothing or whatever. And so, but making them human enough that they fit that trope of being, fallible in some ways, more molded than you expect them to, but more so representing that visually and through their power usage.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is I'm like, depending on what your definition of a god is they're able to bend reality. I mean, the way I did my gods is my gods were sort of a master of one thing. My main character was a god of lightning, so he could control lightning. He could make lightning. The idea of the sort of kind of Greek gods, and most gods in Greek and Roman and most mythologies are gods of many things, multiple facets, not just one. But to simplify it, I made it a goddess. Crystal's a goddess of rock. Doom is the god of the warrior spirit. Take that as you will, like warriors, a god of war sort of thing, and that's what they were good at. But I mean, if you were talking about actual gods, I mean, they would be manipulating matter. Like that, almost like that the old Thanos comic when the Avengers are fighting Thanos and with the glove, and he would just keep undoing them. Like he would turn Captain America's shield into butterflies, and I mean he would just be rewriting reality that's how I'd almost see it. Now how exciting that would be, I don't
see
know.
Yeah, that's how I kind of carried it visually, where they're because of how, and just as you mentioned insults in it, but in Rome being a very legalistic system, laws of domain are a big thing, and that's also why they gained the term casus belli. They had to have a just war, so they actually had to find some way in which someone else's domain infringed upon Rome's before they could declare war. Of course, judging by history, they found a lot of ways to sneak around that, but and they always had to have a formal declaration of war by having a priest of Mars or a priest of Bellona walk up to the borderline of the territories, and they throw a javelin over to show that Rome and the gods have declared war against that people, which led to a funny story where I believe it was a Gaul tribe that they were actually on the other end of one of their allied states, so they couldn't actually get someone up there in time to throw the spear, but they found that someone from that tribe was actually living in Rome, so they made him. And in Roman law, if you bought a plot of land but you're a citizen of another city or country, that was considered the land of that kingdom. So they made him buy a plot of land. Like the Temple of Bologna lent him money to buy a plot of land across from the Temple of Bologna, so the priest could then throw a spear into it to declare war.
Man.
Well, it's always, you have to make sure you do the first thing first, and you got to throw the spear down. There's no spear. That was like, what was it, Eddie Izzard when he was talking about,
we got a flag.
Yeah, you have a flag, no flag, no country. And there is, as dumb as, and I think that's stupid, but some people really feel that way. You didn't officially declare. I mean, even now we have to officially declare war to go to war with somebody.
Yeah, but given that law of domain, I wanted to have the gods and their avatars, their ascendants, be able to manipulate matter specifically of that domain. So,
that's interesting.
So, Sol, being the sun god, his ascendant Invictus, can manipulate solar energy and thermal energy. Nihilo, being the goddess of the moon, manipulates the background cosmic radiation of the void. And we have Mars ascendant, who can manipulate raw muscle mass, so he just looks like a giant roided out freak.
Oh man,
yeah. But being able to manipulate specifically that type of energy and use that to influence the world. So, but also keep it very much visually distinct in the Roman identity. So Invictus fights a lot with either a flaming gladius or a flaming spear, and he just generates out of raw solar energy, and so because of that, there's no real way to block it unless you are fighting with a weapon made out of pure void energy, something like that.
Yeah. Strange enough, did you ever play a video game called Darkstalkers?
Yes.
Do you remember the character Pyron?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
sun god? That's what almost I was
Yes.
thinking of when you were describing it. Like this guy of pure energy or whatever
Yeah.
that could just change shape and
Mm-hmm.
things. I don't know. I always thought that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So kind of getting back on topic. So I was saying there. So if I'm working on tier projects, to have one that's set like in a hard like
yeah.
hard setting and hard rules, like these are what I need to abide by, and one that is purely fantastical, do whatever I want. Do you guys have any preference on if you're like work on projects? Do you like having something like that? Do you want them, if you're having to balance multiple projects, do you want there to be no rules at all? Like everything is fantastical, or do you want only rule sets, and do you only want to?
Well, it's funny. My Godlings is pretty fantastical. The Obsoletes, even though it was science fiction, is still based on like, I mean, the regular people with guns. They're not superhumans. So I can't have them doing crazy things. I don't know. I never really. As an artist, I think, I was writing one, but the other one I'm just an artist for. I just whatever I need to draw. I don't really think
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is,
Yeah.
if I'm doing my own story, I'll probably do that thing until I get tired of it. And, but if it's something that I'm doing for somebody else, you just kind of figure out what you need to get the job done to bring it when it's time. So that, I mean, so it's really not a matter of what you like or dislike. You try to figure out something about it that you can resonate with, but something to make it interesting if it's uninteresting to you. But for the most part, you just really need to be able to, and I think this comes with maturity. You really just have to be able to switch gears without giving it too much thought, and being whatever you're needed to be at the time. And again, like stuff you've never done before, you got to be willing to try stuff that you've never done before, and not be scared of it, but try to look at it as a learning experience. For instance, doing the battle, like I was saying, doing the battles and stuff in Trumps 3, and the explosions and the mayhem and all that stuff was really instrumental whenever I was doing the Christmas special blowing up of London. It helped a lot because, there's some of those things that I hadn't really settled on yet, as far as how to do bombs bursting in air. Star Spangled Banner, and all that kind of stuff, and it helped out a lot. So you just have to be ready and willing. Now, if it's something that I'm doing, I don't usually switch around too much. I do one until it's done, and then I work on it. So there's not a lot of changing.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, what all did you work on of your own besides Godlings, Aaron?
My 2 children's books were done by me, and I have lots of other books. I did a book called Dead Luck, one called.
And you did that while you were working on Godlings?
I did not. I actually did Dead Luck while I was going to the Art Institute, so I was doing homework and that.
Yeah.
Godlings was the first time I did Obsoletes and Godlings together most of the time. But sometimes I would write stuff while I'm working and finishing a project. I would write things down and stuff like that. I'm kind of taking a break from writing and just sort of drawing. I have some ideas. I do want to make some comic books of my Noct the Barbarian, but there will be just single issues. That won't be. I don't want to do a series or multiple issues. It'll be multiple issues, but each issue will be its own self-contained story. It won't be like this interconnected huge saga. I don't know. I don't really want to do that now. It would just be, and I want to practice telling short stories. I think it'd be kind of fun to do that. So yeah. Right now I'm just drawing stuff of him while I'm working on the Obsoletes and putting, rolling stuff around in my head. I have a story idea. I just I've just been drawing, and by the time I'm done drawing, I'm like, I don't want to write, but it's still stuck in my head. So there's that.
So yeah, you mentioned working on stuff while also doing homework and going through school, and that's something that like a lot of us get started in doing that. Usually, you end up getting your first creative works either get published or are close to being published ready while we're doing school. So, balancing doing homework and working on your stuff, because obviously you have to do it in the same share of time.
Right.
How was that? How was mapping that out for you? How did you find something that you wanted to do, and or finding out? I'm having a brain fart here. How was the juggling act there? Doing schoolwork as opposed to doing at the same time as doing work for publication or work for yourself, essentially.
Work from it's funny. I would do. There was a lot of times as I was going to the art institute doing illustration, I would actually use the book, the cowboy character I was working on in Deadlock. I would use him in a lot of assignments sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, just to build other assets. But it was I would work on it during class. I would take my portfolio around everywhere to class, and if there was downtime in class or I'd finish my assignment, I would sit there and draw. Especially I would sit and draw on it before class started and during breaks and whatnot. All the time I would do that. But I would just always kind of find time to juggle it. I would get my homework done, then I would work an hour or something on that. So. I didn't. So is this a self-portrait, Quentin?
Yes.
Yep. With me without skin.
Yes. Skin the self-portrait. All right. Well, I am unbeknownst to my colleagues today, but I want to see something a little different here. So we are going to be ending it shorter than usual. We're going to end about an hour and a half mark, since that seems to be where a lot of our Wednesday and Sunday shows end.
Yeah.
So just kind of keeping a uniform look to that, and I want to see how that looks on the YouTube views in the long term. If that performs better than the 2-hour ones, or if it's worse, what have you. So kind of experimenting with that. So we'll grab some final thoughts here from Quentin, Aaron, on working on 2 projects at once. Any tidbits of wisdom or advice, or thoughts that you had on working on multiple projects at the same time.
I would just set aside time to work on each one. There will be times where I'm waiting for the time where I start drawing another character from one comic and another comic. I haven't done that yet, but I'm sure that's coming. I don't know. You just kind of, a lot of times when I was working on like Galleons and obsoletes, I would focus on the obsoletes, and when I reached a point where I was done with that, then I would switch my focus to Galleons. I would rarely go back and forth, like draw a little bit of this page, draw a little bit of that page, a little page. I would finish a page and move on to the next page and just go back and forth. So whatever I was working on had my full attention at the time. That's how
I would say that if you are working on something of your own, and this helped me, if you find, be careful what other kind of stuff that you watch or take in. Be careful that it doesn't like infect your work too much, as far as like, I don't mean, just you not doing your work, but I mean, as far as like infiltrating your work. Like you start watching a lot of Dragon Ball Z, and Star Wars, or and here you're doing something really neat, and then all of a sudden you start watching all this other stuff, and then that stuff starts creeping in too much, and then before long you're doing Dragon Ball Z, or that's something that I've actually, whenever I was doing my game, I was almost going into, it's a fantasy game, yet I was like fixing to start putting like alien aspects in it, which wouldn't have been bad. It would have been cool, but at the same time, it's kind of getting off the point. Let's let everybody get this first before we start moving on to other stuff like that.
Right.
So, and also, if you're gonna watch stuff, take stuff in, try to keep it kind of, where you are in your stuff. I'd say.
Yeah.
Or, you can watch whatever you want to. You're a grown individual. You can do what you want to, but at the same time, just know that you watch too much or you take in too much, it might start getting into your stuff, or it
Right.
may even draw you out of your stuff altogether. And you'll be like, I'm kind of getting old with this. I want to do something else, because here you are, you've been watching all the sci-fi when what you're doing is fantasy, and now you want to do something
Yeah.
sci-fi. Um, and if you're doing stuff for other people, just keep in mind that you're doing it for other people, and you need to give your best work. You need to be whatever it is that they're needing, and you need to be mature enough to be able to switch over and make it happen. Show up, make it happen. And don't accept everything, but don't accept things you can't finish, or you don't think you'll stay interested in. That's another thing,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of that happens.
Right.
People say yes to stuff, and then they actually start doing it, and they're like, I hate this.
Right.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you find yourself in a situation where even though you're interested, you just said yes to too many things, and all of a sudden you have no time to actually take care of your own, problems at home, or you're
Stuff of
getting
that
burnt
nature,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep your priorities straight. You got to also remember what else you're doing, because you don't want to be a disappointment then to the people you're doing stuff for. I mean, so that's all I have to say about. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. And kind of following up on that, when you're saying yes to things, make sure you take on enough projects to give yourself that good stress that keeps you on your toes and allows you to progress and grow. But don't burn yourself out, because you're going to get diminishing returns. Your stuff is going to start sucking, and it may not get done. And make good use of guilt-free zone out time. Just if you love gaming, if you love watching movies or whatever, set something that you want to do aside and say, okay, when I get my project done, that's what I'm going to be doing. And then when you do it, do the thing you want to do, and don't let people pull you out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, another thing, just in terms of protecting your time, do it with your free time, but also when you're if you have a day job, if you have a family, if you're managing other things, and you're at the point now where your writing or your art is your passion, but it's not your full-time occupation, protect that time as well. If you need to, block out times of the day where you're like, I'm just going to be working on my art, I'm just going to be writing or whatever. But if people try to pull you aside, or people try to do something, let them know that, like, no, you're working at the moment, you're doing something, and don't let them break the time up for you, because you want to make sure that you get something done with that time.
Yes, you should definitely set a time. That's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
You really need to set a time, and you need to set a time that everybody can agree on. That, hey, on this night, I'm not daddy.
Yep.
I'm an artist.
I have to sound you as your father for the next 2 hours.
Yep. Yep. Don't ask me for anything. You want something to drink? Go get it, son. No.
All right. We have been on that Silverline show on Tuesday. We're going to go ahead and grab our socials there, but I'll put those up on the screen. But we're going to let start with Aaron. Where can people find you? What are you currently up to? What can people be expecting to see from you anywhere on the internet, in life, behind 7-Eleven?
You can find
what is he doing behind the 7-Eleven?
You're gonna have to come behind the 7-Eleven to find out.
Oh, I need to bring some money.
You always have to bring money. Eddie likes money. No, I'm on Facebook at Humphreys Illustration, or my name, Aaron Humphreys. Instagram, same thing, Humphreys Illustration. I'm as far as stuff, I'm working on some more Knock the Barbarian pictures while I work on the short story, the first issue of that. So you will be seeing, and the idea with Knock the Barbarian is to color the book the way I color the pictures, so I'm going to color it a little more extreme. So it's going to take me a little longer. That's why I'm doing shorter stories, because it's going to take me longer to complete them. Then I since I've finished with Goblins, besides drawing the obsoletes, which you'll be seeing more of that from me, I'm just going to kind of focusing on drawing pictures again, like actual composition of pictures. So I jump into a comic again. Yeah.
Very cool. Quentin, what about yourself? Where can people find you? What are you up to, and what can people expect to see from you in the future here?
Well, we have the third book of Trumps that'll be kickstarting really soon. I'm not exactly sure what date, but this is one of the covers for it. I'm not sure if it's the main one, as I said before. Also, I am working on currently in production is Night Rise, and I can show off just a really quick double-page spread of that. Give me just a second here, and I'll hunt it up. But you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on DeviantArt. You can find me if you can Google my name and find me. But really, a lot of times I don't want to be found because I'm so busy that I like to stay, hidden.
Secret.
Hidden.
Protected work time. Yeah.
I can only show this very quickly and then gone. So
yes.
It's a double page spread of Night Rise, which is what I'm working on right now. So all fully colored.
All pretty. Are there going to be words like the page, like the story title above or whatever?
There's going to be, I think, right over here in this area, there's going to be like the artists and, all the credits and probably some little things here and there.
The purple turned out good.
Yeah, it's super dope. I think next time I have you do something World War II related, I got to give you more skulls to do.
Yeah, I love doing skulls, as you can tell.
Yes.
I like to put a thin layer of skin, right, Aaron, on the skulls
so
they can have expression. One. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. All right, cool. All right, and I've been Tim TK. You can find me everywhere at Tim TK Writer, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, you name it. And you should have received a copy of Wolf Hunter. I am currently working on the History Edition, which is a PDF that you can read side by side that actually gives you the historical context for the Battle of Britain, the Channel battles, and the Tizard mission. And it's turning out much more in depth than I intended it to be. So hopefully you like cited and sourced Chicago-style history documents.
Absolutely.
Yes. No word yet on Soul Senate. I believe that's still in the hands of the artist. All right. We'll be in that Silverline show on Tuesday. We'll be back next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. We may be running an hour and a half. You may be running 2 hours. I don't know. I'll check the analytics. You can also catch that Wednesday, or not Wednesday show. The Wednesday Schwammers will be here 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And Silver Sunday will be here 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday.
Yep.
So
until that time, remember to
make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline. Oh, and Tim, you don't forget to tell them about your your stuff that's coming up. That thing we do.
Oh yeah, I think we're talking about.
What?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.